Hello, my name is Tony Beers, and this is Movie Grades.
And just like the movies, we play out our last scene.
Hey everybody, Tony Beers again. In this episode of Movie Grades, we're going to be talking about, 2014 Godzilla?
Happy 60th anniversary, Godzilla!
And of course, we got Robin here.
Glad to see all of you again.
In Godzilla 2014, scientists accidentally awaken giant monsters who attack cities and create destruction wherever they go.
Let's talk about the story first. What do you think of the story itself?
Of course, not everyone knows because we haven't reviewed a lot of Godzilla movies, but I'm a big Godzilla fan, and there's always a formula to the Godzilla movies,
Right.
and it certainly played up to the hype for me, and it certainly played up to the Godzilla formula.
Yeah. I think that, well, see, then you got me, I'm not a Godzilla fan at all. In fact, this might be a shock to some people. I actually like the 98. I actually liked that movie. I actually thought it was good, so take that for what it's worth. Yeah, I guess the story itself is okay. I mean, they treat it like a disaster film, pretty much. Is that how all the Godzilla films are?
Slow pace, and the monster shows up, and then Godzilla comes out from out of nowhere. Then they battle, and then Godzilla gets his butt handed to him, only to come back later and defeat the monster.
So, I mean, did you like it, though?
Oh yeah,
The story?
I mean, slower pace, but it built up. It built up. It was just like a roller coaster. Build up, build up, build up. Then you took it back down, and then it built up again.
Okay.
Like you get the first glimpses of the monster, then you get your first glimpses of Godzilla, and and as soon as you geek out over seeing Godzilla, they pull away to some sappy scene because everything was going up and down, and then once you got to that big rush in the final battle, you were up this high, and you're like, yes.
That's the part I didn't like. I was like, every time they would show Godzilla or was about to battle, they cut away to something else. Like the first time they did that, I believe, was Godzilla was about to battle one of the creatures, and they cut away to some kid who's watching it on TV. It's the main character's kid, I believe.
Yes.
And they had another scene where Godzilla's about to fight, and then they shut the doors, and so you can't see. So that really disappointed me. I mean, is that common in Godzilla films?
No.
No.
No, because most of the Godzilla films, of course, were directed by Japanese guys, and
Yeah.
everything centered, of course, every battle was in Japan.
Yeah.
This one, however, I like the director's fresh take on it,
Okay.
where they did a little bit over in Japan, but not a whole lot,
Uh-huh.
and then they started with Godzilla fighting the Mutos over in Hawaii, and then they took it over to the West Coast mainland of the United States in San Francisco and Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
So it made it seem more
A
worldly.
few people complained about that, saying, it should be only in Japan, and I'm like, nah. I mean, this is what happens when you get you have an American remake of a foreign film. Is you kind of I said transplant it, over to America, and then I discussed this with someone else, saying that it's kind of like the movie Magnificent Seven is actually kind of a remake of the Seven Samurai. And so when you make an American remake, when you take the story and transplant it in America, you take whatever is Japanese and you make it American. So in other words, instead of samurai, you had cowboys in that. So that's what they're doing here. I mean, and the Japanese do the same thing when they take something American, and they remake it for a Japanese audience. They make it for a Japanese audience. Like a good example is Spider-Man. Then when the Japanese had the 70s Spider-Man TV show, he wasn't white, he was Japanese. Spider-Man was controlling giant robots.
Exactly.
Like Voltron. That doesn't happen in Spider-Man comics. A thing that happens vice versa. When Americans take a foreign property, they make it their own, and when the Japanese take on an American property, they make it their own. So let's go on to special effects.
Yeah, I absolutely like the design in this movie for Godzilla. I like the design of the Mutos that he was facing. They were kind of looked like giant praying mantises. CGI was more than halfway decent. There were some scenes you could obviously tell.
You know, it's CGI. I have to admit, for me, it did look good. It did look realistic. The design was okay. You know, a lot of people say that the '98 Godzilla, they said it didn't look right. I thought it looked fine. This is a giant monster. I mean, this one looked fine too. I'm just so glad that they finally got away from man in the rubber suit. I think it looks a million times better than the man in the rubber suit.
But there is a certain appeal for having a man in a rubber suit.
See, maybe that's why I never got into Godzilla movies. I couldn't get past that. It always looked so goofy to me.
The man in the iron suit stomping on little tanks and knocking down planes. There's just a lovable appeal about that.
Yeah, you're saying it's got its like its own charm to it, I guess.
For those of us that love Godzilla, yes.
Like I said, this is my personal thing. I don't like it. Anything else you want to say about the special effect?
They did a real good job with Godzilla and his fire breathing.
Fire breath, yeah.
His fire breath.
Or whatever you call it. I don't know. Maybe there's some Godzilla way.
There's some Godzilla way, yeah.
Fire breath. Well, you're supposed to be a Godzilla fan. You don't know what it's called?
I just call it his fire breath.
Okay. What do you think of the act?
Everyone did a good job, except I think it was Ken Watanabe at that one point when they were explaining Godzilla to the character's name was Ford.
Kick-Ass. I think his real name is Aaron Taylor Johnson.
And it was so goofy the way he said it and the way you mimicked it. It was so funny.
Yeah. See, I think one fault of this movie is that it's taking itself a little too seriously. So when he says that line, when he turns his head around and says, "We call it Godzilla," you know, then it makes you laugh because and everything that's going on is when you take something too seriously, it makes it funny. You know what I'm saying? When your subject matter is goofy to begin with, you know, a giant monster that's asleep for thousands of years, they wake up with nuclear bombs, you know. So it kind of brought it down. I mean, I was telling you that I preferred Pacific Rim, which I really loved, and I was like, Pacific Rim didn't take itself too seriously, and I think Godzilla did. I think if they had more of a Pacific Rim tone to it, I think I would have loved the movie a lot better. What do you say?
Well, obviously going into it, I kind of knew, you know, it has to have some sort of Godzilla elements, which it did, and Ken Watanabe playing Dr. Shirazawa, which was the original Doctor in the very first Gojira film.
Yeah.
So I like that shout out to the original one.
Uh-huh.
Pacific Rim was good for what it is. Godzilla, like I said, it's just a formula.
Yeah. Yeah, but I was talking about tone.
Well, the tone for this was very I'd say it seemed more darker.
Yeah.
Which isn't something normal for Godzilla.
Yeah.
But it was trying to be on a realistic level.
Yeah.
Not unlike Man of Steel, but it was more more realistic, and I could appreciate that fact too.
Mm. See, I have to disagree with you on that. I think it was too realistic. Well, let's move on to the action in the movie. What do you think?
they kept teasing and teasing and teasing
Yeah, exactly.
to the end.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I didn't like that myself, but
It kind of strayed away a little bit from that Godzilla formula.
yeah.
The movie was just that build up towards that big battle, though.
Uh-huh.
Battle was fine. The soldiers were fine. Everyone's reactions to the monsters were fine.
Yeah.
That final battle, had me on the edge of my seat going, come on, Godzilla.
You were cheering on Godzilla.
Of course. It's not called Muto. It's called Godzilla. It's very good.
I thought it was okay. Like my biggest problem was, like you were saying, the teases. Like I was saying, that they would always start a battle and then cut to something else, and that really bothered. Again, that's not common in other Godzilla movies, is it?
No.
I mean, I'm not an expert, but as far as I know, when they show a battle in the original Godzilla movies, they show it. They show the whole battle from beginning to end. They rarely cut away to other stuff. Am I right?
Correct. They don't. They stay with the battle until it's done and over with.
Exactly. Yeah. And they zoom out so you can see everything, all the monsters, and nothing's in the way too. That's how it's different here. Is a lot of times there's buildings in the way or something, and it I don't know. That just kind of, I guess they're kind of going for, like I said earlier, a disaster movie where they're getting the point of view of the people getting attacked instead of pulling back and seeing the battle, which I think I'd prefer it if they pulled back and you could see what's going on.
But it followed the formula of all the Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
I can't complain about it. A lot of people can, I guess. But overall, I'm giving this a B.
Okay. Well, because of the reasons I said before, they cut away to a shot right when a fight's about to begin. You don't. It's very dark and it's hard to see Godzilla. And but I give it credit for the special effects were really good. And when they did have the fights, they looked pretty cool. And I have to say it was boring. A lot of when they cut away to the human stories, I was like, really? I don't care. I honestly don't care. I mean, at the beginning, I started caring because you had Bryan Cranston, his wife dies, spoilers, and he's going to find her, and he has a lot of passion about doing it.
And he wants to get down to the truth.
Yeah, he wants to get down to the truth, and you want to do it as well. But as soon as Godzilla is exposed and everybody sees Godzilla and stuff like that, then it just got boring. It's just kind of like, okay, they just seem to be, going through the motions. So I have to give it a C. That's about as good as I can get. I was thinking C, maybe C minus, but it's not necessarily a bad movie. It's just if I ever watch it again, I'm gonna fast forward through all the human parts just to get to Godzilla bit. Like I said, I think that Pacific Rim is just more my type of movie. I can understand why people might like this, but it's not my thing. Pacific Rim is better, and I know this might cause a controversy, but I think the '89 Godzilla was better than this.
The 98.
98. I can't remember dates because the pace kept up. It was something happening all the time. This one, the pace slowed down quite a bit, and it just got boring. So.
I refuse to acknowledge the 98 film.
So, I think that's our opinion. You gave it a B. I gave it a C, and that's our grades. And we'll see you next time.
Toxic Pop has a new Facebook page. Like it to see pictures and keep informed about our upcoming events and videos. A link is in the description. Go to www.facebook.com/toxicpop1.